Welcome to another audiobook from Old Soul Book Tales. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video so more people can enjoy. Chapter 1. The Wrong Side of the Wind. The Dakota prairie stretched endless under the fading sun, the kind of land that made a person feel small. Eva Whitmore gripped the porch railing, her knuckles whitening. 2 years in Boston hadn't erased the smell of sagebrush or the way the wind carried voices farther than they ought to go. Then she saw him. Talon Blackhorse sit his horse like he'd been born there, still as a shadow, watching. Half-Lakota, half something else the townsfolk whispered about. The kind of man her father had warned would slit a throat for looking at him wrong. But Eva knew better. She'd known since she was 16, and he'd pulled her from the creek after her mare threw her, his hands careful, even as his voice growled, "You ride like a city girl." Now he swung down from the saddle, boots kicking up dust. Older, harder. A scar split his jaw, pale against his sun-darkened skin. "You're lost?" she called, forcing lightness into her voice. His mouth didn't so much as twitch. "Came for what's mine." The words sent a lick of heat down her spine. Stupid, reckless, the kind of feeling that got fences burned and rifles loaded. She crossed her arms. "If you're here for revenge, I'm here for you." The quiet certainty in his voice unraveled her. She remembered the last time they'd stood this close, the brush of his thumb over her wrist, the way he'd stepped back like she'd burned him. "This ain't how this story goes for people like us," he'd said. Now he took that step forward. Eva held her ground. "My father's inside." A lie. The ranch house stood empty behind her, the windows dark. Talon's gaze flicked past her shoulder, then back, slow and knowing. Liar. He reached out, tucking a wind-blown strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered, rough from reins and rifle work, gentle in a way that made her throat tight. She should have slapped his hand away, should have reminded him of the feud between their families, the bullet her father had put in Talon's uncle over grazing rights. Instead, she leaned into his touch like a damn fool. "You think this ends any way but blood?" she whispered. His thumb traced her cheekbone. "Only if we let it." A shout echoed from the barn. "Eva!" Her father's voice, sharp with suspicion. Talon didn't flinch, just pressed a knife into her palm, bone handle, warm from his skin. "Keep it till I come back." Then he was gone, melting into the twilight like he'd never been there at all. Eva clutched the knife, her pulse hammering. She'd spent years pretending she didn't hear his name in every thunderclap, see his face in every campfire. Now, the reckoning had begun. Chapter 2. Blood on the Deed. The first rock came through the window at dawn. Eva jerked upright in bed, glass shattering across the floorboards like spilled stars. Talon was already on his feet, knife in hand, before her breath caught up to her. "Stay down." Another rock, then a voice, thick with whiskey and hate. "We don't want your kind here, half-breed." Talon didn't flinch, just pulled on his boots slow, like he'd expected this. Eva's fingers dug into the quilt. She'd known marrying him would stir the hornet's nest, but knowing and hearing it were different. She reached for the rifle over the bed. Talon caught her wrist. "No." "They're throwing rocks at our house." "And if you shoot?" His thumb brushed her pulse, "then it's bullets next." Outside, laughter, the crunch of boots circling. Someone spat on their porch. Eva yanked her arm free. "So we just hide?"
For the first time, something dark flickered in Talon's eyes. "We fight smarter." The sheriff came at noon, hat in hand like that made him polite. "Now, Eva, your daddy's got legal claim to this land. Marriage don't change that." She clenched her mother's deed tighter. The paper was 20 years old, ink faded, but the words clear. "To my daughter, Evelyn Marie Whitmore, this homestead in perpetuity." "Perpetuity," she said sweetly. "That mean anything to you, Sheriff?" His smile went thin. "Means your husband ain't got rights to it, 'specially not him." Talon leaned against the doorframe, silent, but Eva saw the way his jaw tightened. She stepped closer to the sheriff, close enough to smell his rotten teeth. "Tell my father if he wants this land, he'll have to drag me off it himself." That night, they burned the fields. Eva stood in the choking smoke, dress hems singed, watching the wheat her mother had planted turn to ash. Talon's arm barred her from running toward the flames. "Let it go," he said. She turned on him, furious. "Why? Why do you just take it?" His hands framed her face, calloused and sure. "Because fire don't last, but we do." Somewhere in the dark, a man coughed, a boot scuffed dirt. They weren't alone. Talon's mouth brushed her ear. "Get inside," locked the door. She grabbed his shirt. "You come with me." For a heartbeat he hesitated. Then he nodded. But as they turned, a shot split the night. Chapter 3. The Letter. The saddlebags smelled of sweat and gunpowder. Eva hadn't meant to pry. She'd only wanted to save it from the dust storm howling toward the ranch. But the weight felt wrong. Too heavy for just spare bullets and a whetstone. Her fingers brushed paper. Her father's handwriting stopped her heart. "You'll get the girl. I'll get the land. Play your part, and the deed's yours when she breaks. Don't fuck this up, savage." Rain slapped the tin roof like a warning. The date on the letter was 3 days before Talon rode back into her life. The door creaked. She didn't turn. Couldn't. Her voice came out flat. "You were supposed to ruin me." Talon's boots scuffed the floorboards. At first, she whirled, paper crumpling in her fist. "Was the creek part of the plan too? Letting me drown would have been quicker?" His face hardened. "I changed my mind the second I saw you." "Bullshit." She shoved past him into the storm, rain soaking through her dress in seconds. "Because I knew you'd run." He grabbed her arm, voice raw. "Just like you're doing now." Lightning split the sky. For a heartbeat, she saw the boy who'd pulled her from the water all those years ago, terrified, furious, alive. She yanked free. "I loved you." Talon flinched like she'd shot him. "You still don't?" Thunder drowned her answer. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. Gunpowder and wet earth. That's what hate smelled like. Eva watched from the barn loft as her father's men fanned out across the yard, rifles glinting in the stormlight. 6 against 1. Fair odds for cowards. Talon stood bareheaded in the rain, hands loose at his sides. No weapon, no retreat. Just that infuriating stillness that meant he'd already decided how this would end. Matthew Whitmore spat at his feet. "You stole my daughter. You threw her away, traded her for dirt like it was nothing." A muscle jumped in her father's jaw. Eva knew that look, the same one he'd worn when he'd burned her childhood books, when he'd backhanded her for smiling at a Lakota boy. Now it was aimed at her husband. She reached for the shotgun hidden in the hay. The first shot came from the trees. Talon moved before the echo faded, shoving Eva behind the water trough as bullets chewed splinters from the porch. She tasted blood where her teeth had cut her lip. "Stay down," he growled. "Like hell!" She racked the shotgun. Their eyes locked. For one wild heartbeat, she saw the boy who'd taught her to skin rabbits, the man who'd warmed her frozen hands in his, the liar who'd wrecked her. Then she rose and fired. Smoke stung her eyes. Someone was screaming. Her father stood frozen in the kill zone, his fancy waistcoat turning crimson. Eva's breath came in ragged pulls. She hadn't aimed for him. She hadn't. Talon wrenched the gun from her shaking hands. "Go inside." Matthew Whitmore laughed through the blood in his teeth. "Look at you, girl. You finally grew a spine. Too bad it's for him." The world narrowed to the revolver in his belt. Eva stepped between them.
Chapter 5. Where the Wild Things Grow. The first snow fell the night their son was born. Eva's screams tore through the ranch house, raw enough to shake the icicles from the eaves. She cursed in English, prayed in Lakota, and when the midwife finally placed the squalling bundle in her arms, all she could do was laugh through her tears. The baby's skin was the exact warm bronze of sunset over the plains, neither white nor red, but something the earth itself had dreamed up. Talon's hands shook as he touched the boy's fist. "Wichahapi," he whispered, voice cracking like thin ice. "Starlight, star bright," first miracle he'd ever dared name. Outside, the wind howled its approval. Willow Ridge still turned its back on them, but the land remembered. The creek where Talon had fished Eva from the rapids now watered their apple trees. The field Matthew Whitmore's men had burned grew goldenrod through the bullet casings. And at dawn, when the light hit the cottonwood's leaves just right, the shadows spelled out words only lovers could read. Mrs. Langley left a basket of honey cakes on their fence post that spring. No note, just the ghost of a smile as her buggy rattled away. The boy grew like prairie fire, fast and fearless. At 1 year, he gummed the pages of Eva's stolen Boston poetry books while clutching Talon's carved wolf figurine. At 3, he startled the preacher by counting in both languages. At 5, he stood barefoot in the garden, one hand buried in cornmeal mush, the other pointing west where thunderheads gathered. "Storm comin'," he announced. Then, with a grin that showed all his baby teeth, "Good for the beans." Talon's chest ached watching him. This child who'd never have to choose. Eva found the letters when Wichahapi turned 7. Buried in her father's old desk, beneath land deeds and unpaid taxes, a stack of yellowed pages addressed to her mother. Love letters before the bitterness, before the whiskey, before Matthew Whitmore forgot how to be soft. She read them aloud by lamplight while Talon mended a harness. Her voice only broke once. "We should burn them," Talon said quietly. Eva traced the crumbling ink. "No, he deserves to know where he came from." The next morning, she tucked one letter into the boy's lunch pail. Let the truth come slow, like spring melt. Travelers told stories about them. The half-breed with eyes like flint. The Whitmore girl who became a myth. The child who spoke to hawks and recited Shakespeare. They said if you stood on the ridge at twilight, you could hear them laughing, 3 voices braided together with the wind. The land had tried to break them. Instead, it made them legend.
If you enjoyed listening to this story, do well to subscribe and drop your thoughts in the comment section. See you on our next video. Toodles!